Nights at Freddys 2 is pulling no stops. Game fans, you're in for a surprise. Movie fans, you might be like, what the hell am I watching? What's going on, buddy? Welcome back to a brand new movie review. Today we're discussing Five Nights at Freddys 2. Takes place 1 year after the supernatural nightmare that took place in the pizzeria last year. Former security guard Mike has kept the truth from his 11-year-old sister, though, Abby, concerning the fate of her animatronic friends. But when Abby sneaks out to reconnect with Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy, she sets into motion a terrifying series of events that reveal a very dark secret about the true origin of Freddy's. Now, here's the case. I thought the first Five Nights at Freddys was not a well-made movie, but it was one that I kind of enjoyed just for how bad it was. The script and story were not there, but the animatronics, a lot of that aspects were kind of quite fun. And I think overall the set design and the production design of it all really brought the film to life. And I think it actually brought the game to life, which is a game that I've never been like huge on, but I do like some of the lore. And I also love the concept itself of animatronics coming to life and killing people. I think there is some really cool lore to that. So, putting that to prospect, I wasn't like out of my mind excited for Five Nights at Freddys 2, but I was intrigued and interested with it, specifically with hearing what the director is saying, what Jason Blum was saying, and just the cast saying how, like, we took the criticisms of the first movie and we're bringing and fixing them in this one. And I will say, for the most part, I enjoyed Five Nights at Freddys more this time around. I think the sequel is overall better, but it also does have a lot of the same issues and even more. It's bigger, which necessarily doesn't mean it's better, but I found it to be more fun and entertaining, and it really honed in on some of the elements of the game, which, as a fan of video games, I was impressed by. I'm going to talk all about that in today's review. Just leave me down below your guys' thoughts. Are you excited for this movie? Are you not? What is your favorite animatronic from Five Nights at Freddys? I think the marionette is actually one of my favorites, or Foxy. I have genuine, terrifying memories of Foxy running down that corridor and finding that on the camera. That used to scare the hell out of me. So definitely let me know down below, and let's jump into this review. Now, to really set in motion like the best parts about this movie, it's easily 110% the set design and the production design. There's never a second in this movie that I do not believe that these animatronics are real, nor is this pizzeria fake. Every single element of it is always brought to life. And I thought the same thing in the first one, but it's, again, this film is bigger. The amount of animatronics, the amount of Easter eggs in here, especially for fans, they're going to love, but the amount of animatronics in this movie are to a whole other degree. In fact, there were more in here, and maybe it's just because I kind of stayed away from the marketing and some of the leaks, but genuinely, there was some in here that I was very shocked that even showed up, and the way that they brought that to life. And I think a lot of fans, especially the fans that were in this preview screening, were losing their shit at some of this. And they brought it all to life in such a horrifying but awesome way at the same time. And I thoroughly just love the way that they were able to do that. I have no qualms, no issues with any of the animatronics. I think the design of them are awesome. And again, they do such a great job of bringing them to life one for one. Freddy looks like Freddy, but you have all these toy versions of them. And of course, we're heading back to the original Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria location. And the location itself is gorgeous. Like, they have the river, they have Balloon Boy, they have the marionette, which I thought what they did with the marionette in here, which I'm going to speak about a little bit more in a second, was phenomenal. I think it actually is one of the most terrifying things in this. And it all kind of goes back to, like, what I really say about these movies is that Five Nights at Freddys, the first and the second one, I think are like great entry-level horror films for kids. I know kids are really obsessed with these characters. I know that they like the games, but these are really great entryway horror for kids, like full in and full out. Adults, they'll mildly enjoy these. Teens, same thing, but kids is like where this is really going to go. Where, like, when my son is older, these are like some of the horror films that I would probably start him out on first. And I really love that that is kind of like Blumhouse's wheelhouse with these type of movies. And I think there is a reason that they've kind of honed into that and not given into like going R-rated, which may annoy some people, but like that's not what the games were. And I think necessarily even the creator of all of this would even say the same. Back to the animatronics, I just love the design of every single one, even some of the surprise ones that I know were in some of the trailers, but I'm not going to mention which ones I really like. But they play into a whole element of how I mentioned that there's a lot of Easter eggs in this game. It plays all into that. And there's one sequence in particular that literally is one for one from the original game, where someone's sitting at a desk, typing away on a computer, and animatronics are coming after him. There's buttons, there's vents, there's a mask, They play it so well, and I absolutely love that. And again, the animatronics that show up in that moment, perfect. So well done and really executed that, again, fans are going to get an absolute kick out of on that one. That's kind of where I want to segue over to the marionette and really focus in on that, because I think everything they did with that, I've always found it to be the creepiest thing from the game, and I think it continues to be here. Same thing with, like, I think it's called the mangled version of Foxy. Awesome. Really looks cool. Like, the practical effects on that just look awesome. They really brought that character to life in a really cool way. They bring all the animatronics to life in a really cool way. But the marionette specifically was the thing that really caught my attention. Now, without getting into spoilers, they have a human element to the marionette that I found to be absolutely creepy. Very unsettling, and actually gets right under your skin. And I think it is one of the best parts about this movie is everything that they do with the marionette, and actually how it ties into this entire storyline and how it brings these characters back in. I actually do think that, like, using this kid that necessarily, if you know the lore, you know what I'm talking about, but like necessarily, like, the way that that is all brought to life, just really cool. And again, adds to more of an essence of the marionette. And again, every sequence with that marionette actually really got under my skin the way that it was played out. And I think that's a good thing from the director. Also, just say this, I think Josh Hutcherson is so damn good in here. Same thing with Piper Rubio, who I do think is actually the big standout of this entire movie. I think she's so damn good as Abby, and I think she is one of the reasons to see this movie. Of course, Elizabeth Lail is also awesome in here as well. But I think a lot of people are really going to be talking about two people in particular, which is Matthew Lillard and Skeet Ulrich, who are playing William and Henry. They don't really give them a lot to do, and this is kind of going to segue into some of my mixed aspects of the movie. Their performances are good, but the things that I think make this film and would have risen this film above a lot of other things is not making this film feel like the middling chapter and more of a setup movie than anything else. And that's where I'm mixed on this movie, because as someone who's not close to the video games but can see where those video games Easter eggs are, there is a lot of fun to be had in this movie. And I can't deny that I didn't have fun with this movie. I laughed, maybe sometimes for the wrong reason. I cheered. I wasn't scared necessarily, but like, I was entertained watching this movie, even through some of the bad dialogue, bad scripting ideas, poorly lengthed movie. It feels way too long at times. And even like some of the dumb ideas and like kills that like should be more brutal, but as I said, this is more made for kids. The biggest detriment to this movie is the story. It doesn't feel like they know what story to tell and necessarily how to pack a runtime. There's a lot of cool Thor or lore and mythology in this, and especially when it comes down to William and Henry, but it just introduces elements. It introduces so much. And as I mentioned, there's so many animatronics, so many Easter eggs, that sometimes it feels like they forgot about the story. And the first movie didn't really have the best story either, but I would go as far to say I think the first one did have a betterly, at least decent story here. This feels extremely like setup. And I think that's going to mix some people up, especially when it comes down to the third act. The third act just feels like they're throwing everything at the kitchen sink and seeing what's going to stay in it. And there's some moments where I even joked to my friend that I was like, this is like the Avengers showing up. Necessarily, I liked the third act, but it also just kind of left me going, oh, that's it? Just kind of ends. And while I liked the ending, it didn't feel like it built up to that in a satisfying manner because the story just wasn't there. Again, fans might be roasting me for this, for saying that, but I genuinely do believe that the story could have been stronger here. And I'm all for setup. Maybe the third movie will be even better, but I also could see it just kind of passing into the same case and where it's going to go. And especially with like what's set up, like, and knowing how the third game plays out, I really do hope, because it is risky. Like, I'm going to be honest, it is risky if they really do try to adapt the third game like to a more of a T, but I actually kind of hope they do. And I think it could potentially help some of the story, but like also that runtime needs to be fixed. I don't know. In the end of the day, I just found the story to be very weak. And I think that kind of plays into some of the key pieces. That's going to disappoint some people, especially like people who just go to this wanting to get something decent out of it. Because especially like the lore and mythology, it's just like I felt like you could have built on that a little bit more. Just like how the first film, I think, did it in a very great manner. Oh, great. More of a good manner. I think this one could have probably done the same instead of just more feeling like setup after setup after setup. Okay, we got to get the third film. Even like giving a heads up, there is a post-credit scene, which I think fans will also dig. But that's the one thing that rubbed me the wrong way. That leads into a mixed category because I did like some of the elements, but overall can also linger to some of the disadvantages of this movie. I mentioned the script's not great, the dialogue can be pretty terrible, and the kills aren't memorable. The memorable pieces is the set design, the production design. And that's actually like my biggest criticism with the movie is the fact that like most of the movie doesn't take place at the pizzeria. I think that was like a terrible idea. I don't know why, but like, why did we not have it there? You had such a cool location, such a cool area you built up, and you just like barely use it. Every sequence in that area is the best parts about the movie. Everything outside of it, I felt like it could have just been elevated having it there. Maybe it's a budget restraint, maybe it's something of that nature, but like I just personally didn't feel it too much. Coming off as ranting, but I still did enjoy Five Nights at Freddys 2. I just think I look for films to be better. Five Nights at Freddys 2 absolutely could have been a better movie. And I think in some ways it is. It's a bigger movie. I think it's more enjoyable. I think the story could have been absolutely worked on a little bit more, same with some of the dialogue. But I do think, and I will still contend, it is a perfect entryway level horror film for kids. That is what these movies are, and I still contend that there is fun to be had for fans. Fans will probably love this movie. I did not love this movie, but I had fun with it. So with all that said, I'm going to give Five Nights at Freddys 2 a 3 out of 5. Thanks so much again, guys, for watching this. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe link, comment down below your guys' thoughts, and of course, until next time, stay classy.